There's just one now down in a place downtown. Todd Vincent
really?
does all. Yeah, he's pretty cool.
What happened to it? The other one shut down?
No, they just moved, and so he does he roasts out of Elote Coffee. Elote.
All right.
It's pretty cool.
All right, we are live now. So tell us, you're drinking some Elote coffee over there.
Yeah,
Elote
Coffee. Well, Todd Vincent and this friend of mine, Reese Travis is they work together and do a lot of great stuff around the state. And so anyway, I picked up before we shut down, picked up some fresh coffee from Elote. Whole bean, you know, and ground it up. A lot of these young bucks won't know what this is.
What is that?
Hey, that's a Stanley thermos, right? So that's where, you know, it's got the lid. So that's my black coffee, right?
And you do take your coffee black? I didn't. That wasn't false advertising on my part, was it?
No, no, that's right. I don't think there's any other way you can do it, is there?
You know, I have sort of a twitch, and I accidentally put some milk in mine. I was over.
Oh, on accident. Yeah.
On accident. Yeah.
Yeah, that happens never to me.
I had a great cup of black coffee, and then
Yeah, somehow got ruined. That's okay. It's an acquired taste. Okay, great time talk. Good talk. See you, man.
Have a great day.
It's been awesome. 9 to already started.
I feel like we've had enough. I think the viewers have had enough. No, I'm kidding. But can I show you what I brought for you?
Oh, yes, please.
So I had Hero Coffee yesterday. Here's what I went with today. Can you see this?
Oh, big time.
Have you had it before?
I have.
Does it taste like actual Kona Hawaiian coffee? Not the same. Not the same.
You probably have to put some coconut milk in it. You know what I mean?
Just to give it I guess. I gotta get some coconut milk first.
How's our, what do they call it, viewership?
Oh, we're fine. We don't need to worry about it.
We don't need to worry about that.
No.
Come on,
people
folks.
Will tune in. I think if people are tuning in on Instagram Live, they can ask questions as needed, of course.
Okay, that's cool.
And I'll relay them to you, and then we'll replay this on YouTube later. So in case people couldn't for this, but yeah. So here's the first question. I can't not ask it. What's the mood like down in Oklahoma City? How are people feeling?
Well, that is a great question. I think it's I think everyone's staying pretty positive. You know, it's we're a pretty tight knit community. We're kind of a small big town, if you will, and there's been a big push for a lot of local support probably over the last 5-6 years. So it's kind of cool to see that really come to the forefront.
Yeah.
Where you're actually seeing it happen. Obviously, it's very somber. It's scary. You know, my parents are older. My dad's fixing to turn 75. He's got diabetes. He won't stop. That guy's out of the house every day. And, it's choose your battles. So, I mean, it's a tough balance, on how to continue to show some grit and fight through some things, but also be smart and be safe. It's a tough balance, but I think people are supporting. The cool thing I like seeing is people being supportive, no matter what the other person's choice is. Now, if they think they're putting someone in danger, like, I have an older family member who's got some of the symptoms, we're not going to go see them. That's smart, but if someone says, hey, I still need to get out and do some things, they may not look at it the same way someone else does. I think people are respectful of that. So it's been pretty cool, but very historical.
It's historical, man, and it's unique because population density plays a factor in this also. You're in Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City is a massive city, but geographically massive, right? And population density-wise, it's pretty spread out. Chicago is a different beast, and obviously sort of the New York City, the epicenter is, that's people on top of people.
Man.
It feels like. But but it's interesting. It is just to be super clear right from the get-go. Of course, I and I think we would fully recommend people adhering to the CDC regulations and local and national government regulations, of course.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that we can't sort of thoughtfully examine what's going on. Like I'll tell you, I've been quarantined. I've been pretty disciplined about it. But like I hear some people. In fact, we were going to go down to we take our kids to a high school powerlifting meet, national powerlifting meet down in Oklahoma City every year. And, we're talking to the meet directors and folks around there. It is hard to wrap one's mind around the idea that we've got a shut down operation, which means shut down income, which means shut down way of life, et cetera, for this thing that we've seen graphs of but haven't yet seen. And again, I wanted to be super clear. I am fully backing CDC regulations. I just am also trying to understand the human side of it, which is some people don't see it, have heard about it, and have had to change their lives significantly. It takes, it takes sort of a leap of faith, and like you said, hopefully a strong, supportive community to get through strange and certain times like this.
Yeah, I think a lot of obviously in the business world, we've had to shut our doors for a while. I think the biggest thing, man, is just what everyone struggles with, especially in this situation, is just the unknown. It's something we struggle with anyway.
Yeah.
It's kind of not knowing maybe what the remedy is, not knowing how long it's going to be, not knowing what's going to happen to our family or our businesses or our team, whatever. And that's tough, but I think it's not to jump right into it, but it also shows to me like people need to think for themselves. They need to look. I'm personally taking this time to reflect and say, what have I been too dependent on? What are some things that I can change and look at maybe my perspective of other things that I need to be dependent on for myself and my family. And to look at people rushing to the stores to get this, that, and the other, to me, that's reactive. I mean, I think as a society, we're highly influenced whether we know it or not. I'm kind of proud to say I didn't get in the mess of all that. I didn't run to Sam's or Costco and go grab 18 rolls of toilet paper. One, because I was already stocked up, you know what I mean?
You always have plenty on hand anyway. It's not a problem for you.
That's right. That's every week.
That's right. Well, I've seen you're in Tornado Alley. I've actually seen you shelter already. So
yes, you have. That's right. At the house in the garage.
That's right.
Yeah. But
it's interesting. You mentioned. I got a lot to say about this, man. I want to hear what you say about it, and then hopefully we'll be able to translate what we're talking about in this moment in time to coaching and education, all that kind of stuff. I really do believe we'll be able to. I think one thing that I've recognized is, well, first of all, I hear you saying that maybe it's a really good time to reflect on what's actually important in life.
Right.
I'll tell you, we talked to Robin Lyons out in Driggs, Idaho yesterday. She's awesome, by the way.
Yeah, she did amazing.
If people haven't seen her and her work out at Mountain Lab, she's a rock star. She's great. But I think the idea that especially driven people, everybody, but especially people who consider themselves or feel driven, we can lose sight of that. You can say, when the world is driven by accomplishment, it is easy to lose sight of what's actually important. And I've recognized that many times over the course of my life. That is a theme that pops up with people all the time. And like I say, it's sort of a delicate balance with high achievers, because there's nothing wrong with accomplishing at a high level. In fact, I endorse it. Do it, but not not at the sake of what's actually important.
That's right.
And people will sometimes they'll do it thoughtfully. Sometimes it'll sort of sneak up on them. People will ultimately recognize that that's the way and that's the only way. I've got to tap on something you said, and really what it could be summed up as is fear. You talk about people being sort of reactive and going and stockpiling, like an apocalypse is coming. I mean, it's understandable from a human perspective, not advisable. And I think the driving force behind it is that uncertainty that you mentioned, and I would say fear. Have you heard the name Andy Stumpf? You ever heard that name?
I have not. Are you trying to stump me?
That's right. That was a trick. I'm going to send you a podcast with him, Jared.
Okay.
And I want to hear more about you and things down in Oklahoma City, but I can't not bring this up because it just maps on the image that you painted. There you go. Stanley.
Yeah, for those of you tuning in late, that's a thermos that holds hot coffee, black.
I feel like I've seen that maybe walking past the construction site. I saw one of those. I don't know.
Well, when I first got out of coaching, I helped my dad for about 6 months in the construction world.
That will teach you a thing or two about work.
It did. And then quickly I said, you know what? I think I'm going to get back into coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Funny. All right, let me just put Andy Stumpf out of the way so we can hear more about coaching. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, you're good. I love that. Because there's some perspective there too. I think sometimes when coaches say, man, it was such a tough day. Well, it was a tough day in a gym with a bunch of athletes wearing sports shorts, Yeah. You could go be in the military or on a construction site, and tough looks a little different. But anyway, Andy Stumpf, he gave this, like I say, I'll send you the podcast, but he just had this really interesting perspective on it. A really thoughtful guy. He referred to his time in the military and was very clear to say that this is not war. Yeah. Sports are not war. Coaching is not war. And this time in the world is not war, although we have to take these really thoughtful perspectives. But he also said that some of the governing principles in war do map on to what we go through if we think about them thoughtfully. First means recognize that the stakes are not the same. But he brought up this idea, and it was actually in reference to this like mad grab for toilet paper and stuff like that. He essentially said that in war, fear will come. It'll have to dictate your next step. But if you linger in it, and if you're reactive, and if you stay there, ultimately things are not going to go your way. And he referenced a firefight. He's like, there's one goal in a firefight, and that's win. Yeah. And their strategy, and I have not served, so complete respect to all who have. I don't mean to take their story. I'm just relaying Andy's. He talked about the idea that when you are shot at, it is freaking terrifying. Even for a Navy SEAL, it's terrifying. Right. And what you do is you let that fear dictate your next step. And what their next steps are, if you receive fire, you return fire with overwhelming force. If you go boom, boom, if you hear boom, 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 it's got to be coming back at whatever is coming at you. You have to overwhelm. And then anyone who's served out there wants to correct me on this, I'm totally open to that. But essentially, you return fire with overwhelming force, then you maneuver, right? You maneuver, flank, and you ultimately, like I said, priority one, you got to win. If instead you sit in the fear and sort of bunker down and hide or whatever it might be, the folks you are competing against, they do that thing that you were supposed to do, meaning they approach, flank, ultimately win. So right. The idea that fear could be a driver of it is magnificent. The idea that we would linger in it and be instead reactive is probably the wrong strategy. Yeah, no, I agree. That's an unbelievable story. Rusty Witt is a guy that I coached with at Rice University. I think I've heard that name from you. Yeah, he's at Troy now as the head strength coach, but spent some time at Louisiana Lafayette and Texas Tech as the head strength coach for football, and then was with Army, and then just got the head job at Troy. You can tell working with just being around that guy, he's just he's a next level guy. Yeah. Mentally and physically, because what was at stake. And just listening to the stories and seeing how he would draw people in and push them past their point, because it's a different perspective for him. At that time, it was, if I screw this up, what it's going to cost is lives. Mm-hmm. And so it's a different approach to work. And I've seen lately a lot of folks, just to transition a little bit, saying, remember your why. And I think that's important.
I posted something a few weeks ago or a couple weeks ago that said, remember where you started. But what I've been talking about with my staff is what now? What is motivating you now? Because this time is time for us to sit back, reflect with clarity.
Yep.
How do we keep moving? How do we not sit in fear that freezes us up? And how do we keep our feet high? We know on the football field, if our feet stop, we probably lost that on that play, or we have a chance to get ourselves injured if we're frozen for some reason. So in business, if you don't keep your feet hot, and I've made that mistake, that's why I can speak on it. I've been doing it for 4 years now. And if I don't keep my feet hot in business, if I don't sit back and reflect and challenge myself and challenge my coaches, because every time I challenge my coaches, it's something that I'm challenging myself on. I'm not speaking out of, oh, hey guys, I just need you to do this. I'm in a great position, but you guys need to work on this, that, and the other. It's coming from something very personal that I've taken time to sit back. And so what this crazy situation has done for myself is given me a chance to sit back and look at what I can do better, different, but also the reason I started is a different why than the reason I'm going to keep going.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And so it's just a different time. I mean, things evolve and things change, and we talk about, oh, you have to evolve as a person. Well, then that means for me, my why has to evolve as well, because my what needs to evolve too. You know what I mean? So I'm pushing myself during this time to keep my feet hot and figure out moving forward, because it's a different landscape coming back. Say what you will.
Sure.
It's going to be a different landscape coming back. So you're going to have to move and change direction and be fluid and be mobile when we come out of this thing. And make sure that you're that you're postured up to handle some of the new things that are going on. And so when I say that we're taking this time to reflect, I mean, we have no other choice. But you said something earlier about these high performers, the top of the pyramid, the warm fuzzies. Like if we're not, we've got to be able to do it right. If you've been in my gym, you understand that things are to a T, and things are run efficiently and things are run well, because we talk about our anchors, first one being safety, the last one is performance. I want to make sure that we have everything and there's organized chaos, so to speak, using a cloud-based app team builder, using Zen Planner to start organizing the business side of it. But sometimes we get a little spoiled. Like myself, I'm like, I got to go work out in a park now. Like the stars have to be lined up nowadays for people like, oh, well, I can't work out by myself in a garage. Well, that's all you got. Right. Sorry. Well, I need this type of guidance. I need someone in there pushing me in my ear. Sorry. I mean, we get so spoiled, and I'm talking about me. Like, I'm used to coming into this gym and having everything I need, from technology to, movement prep and soft tissue and recovery.
You guys have some nice toys in there for sure.
We have, and that's important to us because we're asset managers, right? Some of the people that we work with are worth a lot of money, and it's how they take care of their family. It's how, it's how they're going to make a living. Yeah. And so I don't write stuff. I wouldn't mind it. It's pretty cool, but I don't imagine writing white stuff on a whiteboard, and saying, hey, here's your workout for today. It's effective and you can do it. But when you're managing assets and that's what they do for a living, that's how they take care of their family and beyond. And people are going to drink from wells that they have dug. Sometimes you can't shoot from the hip and just write something on a piece of paper and call it good, or get online and look for a free workout for your client to do.
Google,
just
Google 8-minute abs.
Yeah, that's right. The taste in my mouth is different when we program. I mean, that's our product, right?
Right.
And so I get a little spoiled sometimes when I come in here. This has been a very humbling experience.
Yeah.
How do we remain at a high level, the top of that pyramid in the warm fuzzies? And the reason we can do it is because we've done so well at the foundations, the fundamentals, to get us to the top, right? We're having to revert back because that's all we have to focus on. And I think people, if you will sit back and reflect, if you're struggling right now, you got to get back to the fundamentals. A lot of us, sorry to go off, not really, but a lot of us are focusing on optics anyway. When I was an assistant AD at Rice University, that's all they looked at was optics, because they had no idea about the daily operations and how they went. Meaning, every morning I get there at 4:30. I'm very purposeful. I have to be with our student athletes.
Right.
Well, now in defense too of the ADs, they didn't have that relationship that we had with our players, right? Mm-hmm. And even further, as a strength coach to a position coach, because strength coaches don't determine playing time, huge, right? Mm-hmm. We don't coach one position. We're with the kids year round, even in the summer when the football coaches can't be, or they're out doing football camps, making extra money. Mm-hmm. So that dynamic, that relationship with those student athletes is greater than anything around campus.
Yeah.
So we're trying to relay that to the administration. And the only reason I say that is because people get so caught up on optics that they lose sight of the foundation, the fundamentals. What Coach told me a long time ago, fundamentals wins games.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then we need to execute the fundamentals as people. And I'm not talking about just training. I've been able to, and one of the reasons I got out of coaching was to hang out with my kids. Mm-hmm. I've hung out with my girls more the last week and a half than I probably have in the last 6 to 9 months.
What a gift, man, for real.
What a gift. But it's also like, what have you been doing, bud? Because I work my face into the ground, right? Like no one's going to outwork me. Mm-hmm. But now it's brought it back to perspective.
Good.
Being a better father, being more creative as a father helps me be a better coach.
Yeah.
And kind of vice versa.
There's no doubt that would be a sort of a nourishing relationship, that if you can do that well, then your interaction with others that you're coaching would probably go well. You bring up so many interesting points. One of them is the idea that not only you can't say we want to be elite, and then all of a sudden as a strength coach, and then you don't have access to elite facilities, and then you are no longer elite. Because then what you really meant was, I want to work in an elite facility. Right? Can
I interject?
Yeah, please do.
You know who this time not having a weight room and all the equipment, who loves this?
Who's
People
that?
like me when I was a D2 strength coach.
Yeah.
We didn't have anything to work with.
Yeah.
Small school coaches, high school. Hey, shout out to you guys. This ain't nothing for them. So anyway.
I'm with you. So I'm actually going to give a shout out, LB, if you can hear me. We got some people following online, but LB, one of my former guys, is online right now. We have, I agree with you. We have a strength program in my day job that ranges in a given year between 800 and 1,000 kids. One of the guys who's watching right now, he's a co-captain of Arizona Rugby. He's a badass. I don't know how else to say it. He's a great guy. But he lifted, I mentioned the scale, like the total number of kids we work with. Our weight room, we didn't mean to build this strength program, right? We got clearance to start it, and it grew into something that we didn't anticipate. So we do we've got a room that's built for about 35, and we've got these high achieving kids at a 4,100 person high school, winning state championships, going on to be captain of Arizona Rugby, et cetera. And we're pushing towels down the hallways sometimes. You got to get a little creative. We're run stairs. And I'll tell you, if you don't have your why, if you don't have your anchors real clear, then from an optics perspective, like you mentioned, it can really dictate your behavior in a negative way. Because if the goal is to be safer, stronger, faster, smarter, more together, whatever those goals are, never have I seen a thoughtful set of anchors, which you referred to, that included got to have elite facilities, got to have elite barbells. Yet when we're in these positions, sometimes we forget that, because I think we forget ourselves. In fact, we've got, I'm sure you're in a similar boat, a lot of Zoom and phone meetings these days, and in those, I hear a lot of people saying, well, it's not going to be perfect. And I have said to my people, we're just not going to say that anymore. This is ridiculous. We're in a global pandemic, and we still feel this need to sort of throw that out there. Well, it's not going to be perfect. BS. It's going to be perfect for right now, given the tools at our disposal. You know what I mean? And that's that's the new way of looking at this.
When is it going to be perfect? I've never seen a perfect workout.
Well, I don't know, man.
Yeah. I've seen some on paper that people talk about. Not really, but there's those expectations. What I told my kids all the time is, don't let perfection cloud your progression.
There you go. That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
Well, and now that you say that, but Andy Stumpf, I don't know if he's the one that said it, but I've heard a lot of SEALs and people in the military say stuff like this. The only perfect plan is one that is anchored well and adaptable. And I don't know if they use that term. I'm kind of using my own terms in that, but like, you go to freaking war, you can have an objective, right? And you can have a set of essentially maneuvering tools, but you don't have a plan. It's not like, like you have to survey the landscape constantly and adjust as necessary.
You don't have a plan, but when things get chaotic, what do you know to do? You trust your training. You go back to the fundamentals. You go back to the basics.
Yeah.
And that's not exciting for people. They always think there's something better, or there's a microwave recipe or championship in a bottle drink, or that's not it, folks. You know what I mean? It's digging in. It's Rusty Witt always used to say, embrace the suck. And I thought, well, okay, well, that makes sense. But it's true. And I tell my girls that too, like, oh, this is hard. I'm like, girls, you have to embrace that. Mm-hmm. You have, like we talked about before, the training, the eccentric part of that load, it's not fun. And you're going to get the most soreness from that.
Yeah.
But it's important to go through that eccentric phase to set you up down the line. And so sometimes we just have to sit in it and embrace it,
No doubt. And for people who don't know that term, actually, it reminds me, one of the first times I was down at your gym years ago at this point, you guys did a lot of Cal Dietz triphasic based work. There's a big eccentric phase, and you had
what's up, Cal?
What's up, Cal? That's right. And Coach Mukes and you were talking about essentially, what was it? Just time under tension, how the response to that was such an incredibly valuable thing, whether you're talking about training or psychologically. And for people who may be unfamiliar with that, eccentric is essentially, if you can picture doing a squat, going down and up with a squat, and eccentric focused training would be on the descent, going nice and slow and controlled. And man, if you do it right, it freaking hurts.
It does. Time under tension. What do we usually want to do? We want to scramble and get out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Instead of control it, right? Control it down, control it in the hole. And then when we're ready, we're going to be firing out of the hole. And it could be with the assistance of bands, which can translate to, you got to look for help sometimes,
Yeah.
Be okay. Don't run from it. Sit in it and learn from it. And I think that turning it back into the state of where we are now as a country, really internationally and as a world, is we have to sit in this and be respectful of it, but at the same time, don't let it dictate how we're going to do some of the things that we need to do to keep moving forward, keep our feet hot.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I've got to lean into that a little bit. How you say around the country, around the world also, how are your people in Hawaii? Have you had any contact on it? Like, is it, that's another place?
Man, it's kind of crazy. A lot of the locals that live kind of on the outskirts of these big towns I think they're just kind of doing their thing. And there's not a smooth relationship, let's say, between the city, state, government, and a lot of the locals. It's gotten better over time, but they just don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. So I don't think there's a lot of hysteria there yet.
Yeah.
But they're trying to be proactive in some stuff. I mean, it's hard, man, in a leadership position. It's hard, but for now, everyone's safe.
Good.
Haven't heard anything going crazy. So.
And is that because we talked about this, actually? If anyone's interested, we had the last podcast we did together, I thought was so interesting, and it was helpful for me to understand some of the dynamics going on in what looks like an island paradise, and how it is not always, especially to those who were sort of there first. We talked about like Disneyland down the block, and then the actual true Hawaiians. Do you think that comes from sort of a distrust of that, or have those communities that sort of on the outskirts, have they just not been as affected as directly?
No, I think, there's just been a lot of things that have gone on that the Hawaiian people take sacred. And money, just like anywhere else, dictates these leaders. They get in there with good intentions, I think.
Yeah.
Some not, and they take advantage of the system to behoove themselves and kind of forget where they came from, so to speak, as they move up in the state and government positions. So I don't think, because there's been a big turn, as we said, into the paying homage to the folks and the land, and that goes ignored a lot, and people are saying, no, this is what we are about. This is our culture. This is important to us. Like, Mauna Kea, them trying to build that telescope that my daughter Cora has done. She's my oldest daughter, Cora, is on the debate team at Edmond Memorial, and she did a lot of speeches over this topic, Mauna Kea, and I think it's like the TMT telescope that they're trying to build. And anyway, it's cool to see those people come together that don't have a lot.
Fill me in on that a little more before we move on. Sorry. So they're trying to build a big telescope. Yeah. Yeah.
Mauna Kea is a mountain, and they want to build this telescope, once again, kind of selling out the land which is the land of the people,
Right.
And so they're trying to sell that up, like, hey, no, we're going to just bypass you and sell it and get all this money, and it's going to be for research, this, that. Well, no one cares about that because the mountain is so sacred.
Yeah.
And it was, 9 months ago, it was, and you haven't heard much about it, but it's important. I think people miss that process. They miss that step, saying, well, this is going to be better for me personally, so I'm going to bypass really what I believe in, so I can, benefit off of it. And there's just local people that finally, are standing up, saying, no, we've had enough. This is our land, and it's sacred to us.
Yeah.
And for different reasons, but it's cool to see them come together and stand up for that. And so, I'm trying to teach, from Oklahoma, we're the Hawaiian Hicks, and they're like, oh, you sound like Elvis. I'm like, thank you very much. But it's important for my girls, for them to know, their family over there, and the culture and the meaning behind, our name and what our family stands for. And our family's gone, they've been through some rough times lately, with some people passing away, and my dad's brother and his ex-wife, and it's hard times right now. You know what I mean? So
sure.
I don't know. It just changes perspective on a lot of things. Every time, if you put yourself in positions and you keep working, is what I'm trying to get at. I know people don't want to listen to some of the stuff going on the Rock, but it all comes back to, if you put yourself in positions to keep moving forward and take risks, these things are going to happen, right? And if it hasn't happened, or you like staying in a comfort zone, it's not going to be very fulfilling. If you don't have anything to stand up for, it's not going to be very fulfilling. There needs to be things that you have a purpose about, and you can't just check boxes. I have said that for how long now? Like, if you go do something that's purposeful and you take risks, yes, the rewards can be great, but there's going to be some failures in between there that are going to hurt. And when it comes to something like this, you don't have to freak out as much, saying, oh, what am I going to do? I don't know what to revert back to, It's why they have the wristbands, on the play sheet, that you can just, oh, okay, I got it. In the midst of all this no huddle craziness going on, you have this thing to revert back to, a little wristband to say, okay, I got it. And that's what we need in life. We need to have something to revert back to when things are going nuts. And that's what we're trying to find right now. Me and my daughters and Connie, we're trying to find a good place to know that we can go back to and be like, take a deep breath.
I think that's right, man. I think one thing that story, plus the mention of the telescope in Hawaii, reminds me of is just like this mantra that we continually come back to: does your behavior match your goal? Ooh. I think if you're in Hawaii and you've become a leader, and you just get sort of caught up in the storm, and you want to, maybe your goals change, maybe your goals have evolved, and you want to, instead of saying, I want to, do what's right for the people of my, whatever I'm governing, the area I'm governing, you say, maybe it changes to something more outcome based, and you say, I want to have brought X amount of dollars into this area. And the easiest way to do that is to sell a piece of the area to, you know, a research company or to install a telescope. I don't know, but it does remind me that without these anchor concepts, without doing your best to figure out who you are and what you're about, and again, there shouldn't be pressure there because that too can be evolving. Then it's really hard, like you said, the hurry up offense. It's hard to navigate chaotic situations. One thing that I have noticed over time is that oftentimes people complaining, I think complaint can sort of masquerade as purpose.
Ooh, yeah.
And that's something that I really have noticed. You know, some people think they have a cause. Sometimes they do, but there are certainly some people who don't have a cause. They've just got complaints, and that makes you feel like you're standing up for something. If you can't say, like, I don't like that, I don't like that. If you can't say why you don't like that, what you'd prefer instead, and how that aligns with your beliefs and in your community, then probably there's some more evaluation that needs to be done. Because actually a mentor of mine, Randy Obremt, wonderful guy. In fact, I'm just kind of reminding, I got to give him a call. I love that guy. So Randy Obremt, former boss of mine, mentor, he said something in a meeting where it was so straightforward. He just goes, you know what? And I think it's probably because I was a young coach. I was in my early 20s, and I think he just patiently listened to my complaints most likely, and then said, you know, anyone could look outside and tell you it's raining. Ooh. You know, and it was as simple as that. And I don't even really remember where the conversation went, but I just remember, like, you know, that's right. Because we all think we're so intuitive when we can call out what's wrong or what's not ideal, as though that's some grand insight.
Yeah.
Well, no, just like fear in the example we used before, that's only a starting point. You know, so you recognize what's not ideal about the situation, then, you know, do you know what your anchors are? And then if so, how do we align those things and move forward?
Well, it reminds me that when you and I spoke, and we've had some of this, team, outreach stuff, kind of workshop for my coaches. One of the anchors that we came up with was character, but it evolved into more of a kind of a definition, if you will, in a team or organization, meaning what character means to us is to make each other right.
Yeah.
You remember that? And how hard is that? Because you're like, oh, it's raining. Yeah. Dylan came in and he tracked water everywhere. And, someone slipped. Instead of calling each other out, not having their back, trying to, step on someone's head to move up, make each other right is so hard nowadays. People are so fast to point the finger.
Yep.
Hopefully this time when we talk about having to embrace the suck and sit in it and be okay with it and don't be frozen by fear, that people can sit back and take ownership of, man, I screwed that one up. I'm going to, not dwell on it, but hey, you know what? I'm going to take that one for the team.
Yeah.
When people say my bad, I mean, I used to have played my bad, coach. No, it's your fault. Let's get that square. It's not your bad.
Yeah.
It's your fault. Which means you're going to own it, and don't let it happen. Learn from it.
Yeah.
And don't let it happen again. So it is easy to point out things that aren't going right, things that aren't going well. That's why I love a very good friend of mine. His name is Captain Obvious, and I've seen a lot of his work on TV lately. But it's so simple to do that, and it's so destructive at the same time. People don't realize it, how destructive that can be in a team setting, right? Because it's so reactive, and it's hard to build up. It's hard to build back up from that, because really you're bringing somebody else down. That's not leadership. Leadership's not a popularity contest. I get it, but at the same time, you have to learn how to motivate each person in their lane to be the best that they can be, and not just point the finger all the time, especially in a leadership position. Well, I've done this and I've created this and I got that. She should be able to, she's got everything that she needs. Hey, in my position, that's an easy thing to do. Instead of, take it on the chin and say, listen, we're going to get better at that. Whatever the case may be. I don't want to belabor the point, but your language is better than mine, so go ahead.
No, you're right. I think it's so hard too. And when I say hard, I hope I'm not pushing anyone away from it. I think we have to embrace the idea. We have to get comfortable with the idea that if you want to do this well over time, it's going to be difficult. And what that includes is, like you mentioned, no two people are motivated the same, because no two people's motives are exactly the same. And that really is the key to all of this. I think back on I mentioned Randy Obrent in my early career. I think back to where I was at 24 coaching compared to where I am now. I'm just like, I would have, the same stimulus, the same direction would change my behavior in a different way, a decade apart approximately. I would just be, if someone got on me back then, I'm trying to just envision myself and be as empathetic as possible here. I wonder what I would have done. I think back then I would have responded better than I would respond now, only because I was so used to being coached back then.
Yeah.
Now I think I want to be guided and supported. I want to think together with people. Back then I think I was more of a train. Now I think I'm a different sort of vehicle. And I actually brought this up with a member of my staff. I say more of a train, meaning I think what I wanted back then, and I know a lot of people will identify this with this. There are a lot of people with big, strong engines and very powerful, a set of abilities that are very high, but especially early on in their careers, they not only need to set a track for themselves, oftentimes they need this track to be set for them. I think back when I was like 24, coming out of a football career, trying to become an educator, I think if you gave me a clear track, I would have gone down that freaking thing as well as anyone could have. I think that's where I was.
Sure.
What I recognize now is that that is such a limited way to do it. We've talked about this before. You can't fullback a board meeting. You can't linebacker a board. You can't just run downhill at someone in a board meeting.
I've tried it.
I think, right. Yeah. and again, does your behavior match your goal? You might, I'm again picturing my younger self. You might get a temporary outcome. You might get someone to sort of back off you, hypothetically. And if that's your goal in that moment, then maybe you can achieve that with a sort of train-like or fullback-like mentality. I think that you learn over time to become a vehicle that's a little more adaptable. You want to be a car probably with a GPS, meaning there's no structure. There's a road system, right? But there's also this idea, you have to have an idea of where you want to go, and there's 1,000 ways to get there. And you've got to navigate the countryside. Now, the elite, maybe all of a sudden, I'm making this up on the fly. Maybe all of a sudden that thing can hover, and you can go over certain obstacles. I don't know, but I think building out this vehicle so that it is more adaptable and doesn't demand a track, I think that's how we want to sort of empower ourselves as leaders, but then also the people that we lead. I think one thing, tell me if you've run into this before. I know I have. Really wonderful, high caliber people who we will ultimately get to a threshold of, look, this is as much direction as I can offer you in this moment. And now I need the initiative to come from you. I need this set of skills and adaptability. I need that to come from you, because if I have to continue to walk you down the path, then an employer-employee relationship, let's just be totally candid. There's a limit to that. If I have to essentially do it all myself and pay you to do it, then that kind of coming full circle, I think there's ownership on the part of the receiver of the leadership as well.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, our goal is to pick on what you're talking about, is to give our coaches freedom to be themselves, right? Mm-hmm. And not micromanage, because we kind of figure out sooner. Early on when I started, I wanted to try to micromanage everything because I was so worried about my product and being delivered correctly. Base to do some things and some goals. And if I take a step back and don't micromanage, I find out sooner kind of who they are, how they work. Mm-hmm. And then can I manage that and work with that? Some you can't. It's like in recruiting, man, you can't save them all. Right? You get these kids in and you want to help them out, And unfortunately, you can't build a program on trying to recruit a whole bunch of kids that may not buy in. I hate that term, or may have had some problems, or they transferred 3 or 4 times. And you want to be the coach that comes in and changes it for them. And the ones that don't make it, man, it breaks your heart. It really does. But you can only do so much, right? When you want it more for them than they want it for themselves.
Right.
There's no return on investment right there. And it's hard to cut them loose, whether it's a player or employee. It's tough because you've poured your heart into them.
Yeah. If you're doing it right, it's a relationship.
100%. Yeah. It's tough. And that's what people don't understand about sometimes, like I said, leadership is not a popularity contest. Right. Sometimes you feel like an umpire. It doesn't matter if you call a ball or a strike. Someone thinks you're
wrong. Right.
Yeah. That's a terrible call. Oh, great call. So it's kind of it's a tough situation to be in, but you still have to make the call. Right. And you got to look at, people always talk about fairness. I don't know. We look at balance more than fairness, but it's that's an interesting position, because you said earlier about the fullback mentality. I think it's okay if you can manage that mentality, right?
Of course.
I did not at my younger years, and my younger years are probably, people are like, oh, he's talking about in his early 20s. Hell no, I'm talking about in my 30s and 40s.
That's right.
No,
that's right.
But in my 30s, I still had that mentality because it worked for me a little bit, but it wasn't sustainable for other people. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
That intensity. And so what I've learned is to, instead of, because I'm going to get what I'm wishing for, either by forcing their hand, and this is what Coach Mukes talked about, Will Mukes, who is my mentor, talked about, they're going to do what you say, or you can turn it around, and it's even in your little thing as they take ownership of it, they thought of it, and you work your way down. But you can tell them to do it, or you can share with them how to do it, drop breadcrumbs, so to speak. We talked about that, I think, last time, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
That's what I'm also, once again, coaching to parenting, parenting to coaching. Man, I've done that with my girls. That's not what they're saying. It's what they're not saying that you can learn from a little bit. It's what they're not doing. If Cora gets in and says, I hate tennis.
Right.
I say, well, suck it up, buttercup. Embrace the suck, get after it. No one cares. That's that fullback mentality. She's done. She's not sharing anything else with me, right? But if I say, girlfriend, I hear you. You know how many times I walked off the football field and said, I'm done. I quit. I hate it. I'm going to kick that coach's ass, whatever the case may be. And then she's like, oh, really? Well, listen to what happened today, Dad.
Right.
And now, instead of saying, hey, you can shoot straight with me. I'm black and white, no gray area. Well, I can say that, but I still haven't created a space for them to come to me and tell me what, share their heart with me.
That's right.
Because they're still like, I don't know if I can do that, because he's got that fullback mentality, that locomotive. He's just blaring through stuff. Yeah. And I still don't feel comfortable, being myself or saying things that I truly want to say to him or to her. And so we have to make sure that as leaders, we're creating a space for clarity of communication.
Yeah.
Because that's big, that your language is very, strong on that.
Well, we do talk about that a lot, and it's essential. And I would say, especially in your place, there's no reason to take the fullback out of you, and you probably couldn't if you tried. But the idea, like we talked about the vehicle earlier, a culture is like a toolbox, or internal at least. Like, you don't want a toolbox full of hammers. That just isn't going to get you very far. Right. And to a point where this thing that used to be able to construct, ultimately, to extend this metaphor, now you're talking about something that's only destructive. If all you've got is a hammer and you hammer away, and then that didn't work, so you solve the problem with a hammer. You know what I'm saying? It would degrade pretty fast. And I'm interested in this idea of replicating and leading a group and opening a culture up to feel free to communicate, how essential that is. If we can't openly and honestly communicate, that's a problem. But there also does have to be a high standard, and that's okay. I'm thinking of, I think we talked about this last time I was down by you. We talked about this micromanagement idea too. And if you're constantly trying to make employee number 1, 2, and 3, replicas of you. I mean, even if somehow you were an expert at it, that you'd still get like 85% of what you would have brought in that situation, instead of getting 100% of them.
Yes.
Operating well within your culture. That'd be the difference. And like I said, and here's what happens: you don't get micromanagement. You don't get 85% of you 3 times over, which theoretically could still be valuable. You get a bunch of pissed off people who don't feel like they can talk or communicate or be themselves. But at 100% of themselves within the structure of your community, that could be really valuable. That's a team.
100%. And once again, you talked about the mentality, of a fullback. We're not saying change your mentality.
No.
I'm not saying change who you are, but I had to learn how to manage it and make it work better.
Totally.
For me and then other people around me.
Yeah.
Because you said you can't be the hammer all the time. Sometimes you got to get the level out and make sure things are stacking up nicely. Because if you just run through it and don't read the directions and take time to measure twice and cut once, you're going to face some problems when it's put together. Trust me, I've put together enough freaking dollhouses to understand, crap, I missed step 2 and now I've got to go back from step 47 and replace this little you know what I mean? So, and so we just have to manage that, who we are. And, I've had several interns saying, I know I need to be more verbal, because they see me on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're like, oh, I've got to be that guy. I've got to talk, have some juice. I've got to have the real sauce. I got to bring it.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, if that's not you, some of the best coaches I've been around hardly say a word. They don't say much, but they're like E.F. Hutton. When they talk, people listen.
Mm-hmm.
That's just not my personality. And I've tried the other way too. I'm like, man, I've got to calm down and be, not be myself. I've got to do this. That you can't do that either, right?
Right.
Managing, and it's getting people around. You have to have different people in your organization that bring different personalities, skill sets, beliefs, whatever it is. Like, you have to be diversified in who they are. Not what they are, but who they are as a person, and manage that. When you came in and we worked just on me, like, hey, Coach K, if you can work on this and you can do that. And I was responding, and it was really between you and I mean, my staff was like,
yeah,
if he's digging in like that and Coach K is digging in, then we can surely dig in. But they're not going to do anything until they see it at the top.
That's right.
They're not going to try hard. They're not going to, coaches can say, they sit back and say all the time, well, this is the way I'm going to do it. I don't really care what you have to say because I know what works. That's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I'm going to give an example. I'm so happy that you're bringing some football metaphors into this, because if you understand football, there's a lot of really powerful metaphors.
I don't understand a whole lot, but I get that.
You know what I'm saying? Well, you get enough. You can have, the best left tackle to ever play the game, but if you put 11 of him on offense, you're not going to go very far. You can't replicate Tom Brady 11 times. And actually, fullback might be a really interesting metaphor. If you understand football and fullback, and especially the modern fullback, those guys have a lot of tools in their toolkit. Like, you've got to be able to run the ball. You got to go straight downhill. You got to get to the edge on a toss. You got to maybe you chip and now you're a receiver. And maybe you got to come off the field and be in support, because we got to spread this thing out because of what the defense is showing us. Like, the adaptability of a fullback, that might be, it might be exactly what we need.
Yeah.
To really look at it.
I don't have a biased opinion on this either way, but fullback is the best position on the field.
I agree.
That's just what I've heard. They're usually the best athletes. They're usually the best looking.
That's right.
Have the best hair. It is.
People say that.
Yeah, that's what I hear, but I'd have to agree with it.
I got it. I got it.
Okay, well, maybe not. Okay.
Maybe not. Yeah, hypothetically, you could envision a situation where that could be true.
100%. Yes. But you're right. There's a lot. They're asked to do a lot of different things, and not just just that one thing over and over and over.
And totally. And then you mentioned the leadership. Dude, I remember the last time. Here the leadership in the sense that you got to be willing to dig into yourself and be open and vulnerable and actually do the work as well. I'm thinking of I'm thinking of two quarterbacks. One of them is Tom Brady.
Yep.
And Tom Brady lives it as much as anyone does. For whatever people think about Tom Brady, like, put that aside just for the moment. That guy is a football player. He's either a dad or a football player, meaning he seems like a pretty legit family guy. And when he's not, he's studying, he's prepping. You could say whatever you want about his training style and his diet. The fact is, he's really intentional about it and incredibly disciplined about it. You know, he is doing it. He is living it. And the guys around him see that. They, you know, everyone in the Patriots organization sees it. Like, but this guy is not all talk. Everything he does is in service to our shared purpose.
Right.
Meanwhile, I'm picturing a guy, and I don't think I'm going to name his name, but some of our friends down at Power Athlete, one of them may or may not have played with this guy. He's a Chicago product. He went to the Super Bowl one year and didn't win it. Never really maximized his potential. Had a lot more physical tools than Tom Brady. But some of the people that were around this guy would not have talked about him the same way Tom Brady's teammates talk about him, meaning super talented. I believe he wants to win, but not totally convinced that this guy is all in. And his behaviors speak to that. You know, so I just see that. And what's the difference? Well, this guy had a lot of tools, didn't model it, didn't live it, and the people around him saw it, and he never won a championship.
Yep.
The guy over here, Tom Brady, you know, limited in a lot of the ways that this other guy was not, but found a way to live it, model it, reinvent it, reimagine it, be patient, take what the defense gives him, be adaptable, et cetera, et cetera. Go through, I don't know how many different rosters has that guy been through over his time as the starter, and still finds a way to put it together. It's funny. I think if you look at it through that lens, I think the roadmap is pretty clear, even. Anyway, sorry for the people who aren't into football. I apologize for the football metaphors, but they do make sense to me and to us.
Yeah, I don't apologize for it, but
no, you don't.
It's given me some cool opportunities to travel, to meet people. I mean, I've lived in Scotland.
Your football career. Yeah. Tell us more about that. So Scotland, I love that story. You played, let's just dig into that down our final stretch. You played in the NFL, and then you went over. Sorry?
I wasn't any good, but
good enough to play in the NFL.
Okay, fair enough. But I was going to say earlier, to your point too, was, Mike Tyson would always say, I don't believe in talent. I believe in perseverance. And so a lot of times when those young players have success early, they don't build up grit. They're talking about this time right now, tough situations. They haven't gone through that. Yeah. Everything's kind of been not handed to them, but it's come easy for them. And, and now when they have to dig in or have to mean something to them, it doesn't really mean something to them. The other people that have had to work their way up step by step by step by step, when they get there, they're doing everything they can to hang on to it, because they remember where they started, right? We talked about that earlier. They remember where they started, and their why has changed. When I said that earlier, it's not, Tom Brady is now, not like, I want to be a starting quarterback. I want to prove myself to my teammates. He's already done that, folks. So what is the next, right? So what's the next reason? You have to find that. You can't keep going back to, this is why I started 10 years ago. That's awesome.
Right.
That's great. Now why? And so, but, that was, when I went to Arkansas, to kind of come back to this football thing, my strength coach was John Stucky, right? I had been training before that with some great folks, but when I met that guy, he poured into me, right? As a person. He had a great personality. Yes, he was talented. Yes, he was hard on us. All those things you think of when you think about a strength coach. But he would, each and every one of us, he had a certain way about him where he could just really pour into each and every person on the team. That guy gave me a chance. That guy gave me the knowledge. That guy gave me the physical skills, the mental skills, spiritual, the whole thing. Tim Weiss is another guy that was there, Coach Chris Carlisle, Don Decker. I mean, look at the people that were with us at Arkansas. I mean, it was unbelievable in the early 90s. But he gave me a chance to play at the next level when no one that's not possible for you, Jared.
Mm.
No, okay, yeah, I get. Okay, sounds good. I'm just going to keep working. I'm just going to keep working. I'm not going to let that slow me down. I'm just going to keep working. I'm going to recognize it, but I'm going to keep going. Went and met some cool people down in Houston. Some people I still talk to today in 1995. Steve McNair was the rookie sensation quarterback.
Steve
out.
McNair.
Yeah.
Is he as good a guy as everyone suggests?
Unbelievable. Now, I couldn't understand the play he was saying in the huddle because he had such a thick accent.
Yeah.
When it first happened, but he was an unbelievable person, unbelievable teammate, very humble, just down to earth. Obviously had been through some things. And so when you look at someone like that brought it every day, his passion and reason was on his shoulder. You could really tell his passion just to be great and make a change for him and his family. And so
it's amazing.
Yeah. From there I went, I think you had to be allocated. I forgot how it works now. Anyway, I went from Houston to Scotland and got to meet a whole bunch of, like Yo Murphy, who's down in Tampa, Florida, doing his thing, training. We just, shoot, Keith Wagner, who's coaching now in Texas, Texas A&M Kingsville, Ben Torriero, who still lives in Scotland, Scotty Koopa, still living in Scotland, Emmett Waldron, who actually played at Rice University, and we kind of reconnected when I coached down there. Cool. There's just a lot of cool people that football has brought into my path. Living in Scotland, I was the nerd that walked around to all the museums and put the headphones on and had the CD player, and we just moved from space to space. It was the time that Braveheart came out. Right?
You were in Scotland when Brave. Oh, that's amazing.
Oh, Coach, I had the whole kit on, man, the kilt and the jacket and the boots, and I'll have to not send you a picture because I'm sure you'll probably post it up on a.
If you have a picture of yourself in a kilt from those days, we need it.
Coach, killing it. Red carpet event, wearing a kilt. It was amazing. But just, the culture and getting to live in Glasgow, but we played in Edinburgh at Murrayfield, which is just a historical place. And we're around, Gavin Hastings, one of the greatest rugby players of all time. Paul McCallum. It was just really cool to see that side and that culture and really see what I thought was really good soccer then, Ranger versus Celtic. When people in America look at soccer, they don't really see the product and the passion that comes over there. But our days off, we got to, I'd rent a car and drive around to Perth and Loch Ness and stay in these
awesome.
These inns. But and then
you were there for 2 seasons, correct?
2 seasons, yeah. I got hurt. That's a whole nother story, but it's just a journeyman's type story when people are telling me no and I'm saying yes, and I keep going through, because that's all I knew how to do was just to keep going. That's what my dad instilled in me, and I had great support from him and my family. But everyone has their 30 for 30 story. I just stopped and embraced mine along the way, and wanted to take it all in. And I knew that it wasn't going to last forever. I had maybe a different perspective on it, where some of these kids. But my reason was I wanted to prove it to myself. I didn't care about anybody else. I wanted to prove it to myself.
Just that you could play at that level. Is that what drove you? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It was always, there's always something that you find that can motivate you, and that just happened organically. But I took it upon myself. I wanted to prove it to myself. I didn't really have anyone else that I, was focused on at that time, just me. But I also was important for me to stop and build relationships and get to know my teammates. And when I say I don't apologize for football, is because it's brought me so many cool relationships that otherwise, if I hadn't have taken the chance and believed in myself and kept going, adversity after adversity, and making it through a car wreck, and I've had 13 knee surgeries. There's plenty of reasons that I can be like, you know what, man, this isn't working for me. It's not fair. Oh my gosh, this, I'm better than that. Why did this? I just kept my head down and kept going and didn't ask questions. And now I have some pretty cool memories to look back on, and a lot of cool people to talk about those memories with. And that's the most important thing.
There's no doubt that it's, there's sort of a fraternity, for lack of a better term. There's a community in football that is really a special one. And now, we mentioned rugby earlier. I think the rugby community has something similar. kind of know what it takes. You've been through it together. It really is.
I think all team sports, Jim, are.
Yeah, in different sort of ways, but yeah, if it's team sport, no doubt.
I'm not taking away from that because it's something bigger than yourself. But football is so unique because you're guaranteed in high school 10 games, in college.
We have a 9-game regular season. Yeah.
NFL's going up to 17 now, whatever. But you practice and train and prepare year round for 12 opportunities.
You're right.
There ain't 40, 50, 60, 70 opportunities. There's 12.
Right.
There's not a whole lot of – there's no scrimmages. There's no preseason in college. I mean, you come out of camp and you got 12 opportunities.
Right.
That's it.
And you're playing for your next opportunity. In that way, isn't that – so that's why I always come back to football, to be honest. And am I biased? Yes, of course. But there are two things that make it so unique, and that's one of them. At the high school, Illinois high school football is solid. It may not be California or Ohio or Texas, but it's very much in the next sort of tier. So there's some good athletes around, but you train for 9 months for 9 guaranteed attempts. Yeah. You've got a 9-game regular season, and everything beyond that you earn. Right. If you get a week 1 playoff, you earn it, and when you get that shot, you got to earn week 2, et cetera, et cetera. It is such a meritocracy in that way, and I think it's a beautiful meritocracy when it goes well. Yes. Because there's also this additional component, like you could be on a basketball team, and of course I'm endorsing all sports, but I think there's just something so freaking unique. 11 people. There's not another sport where 11 people with such a differentiated set of skills have to coordinate to the same end so many times over the course of the day. That feels really like a special thing.
Mm-hmm. No, it is, and you're right. I can only speak, Jim, to what I know.
Yeah.
Growing up, I played soccer, I played tennis, I played basketball, I played baseball, and football. I played it all. My dad made sure I did that. Nowadays it's a whole nother topic and conversation, but kids don't have exposure to that, so they don't really know, like, oh well, football this, football that. But they've never tried it. But I think any team sport, any individual sport is so cool because you can learn so much from it. Yeah. If you're doing it for the right reasons, right? If you're not.
If you're right.
So if it means something to you, I told my kids all the time when I coached them, I said, it wasn't that I was scared to make a mistake. I was scared to let my teammates down.
Yeah.
That's a whole different ballgame. Now I'm scared to let my athletes, my members, my employees down. So the taste in my mouth when I wake up, it's a little bit different, and that's okay. I like it, but it's also like black coffee. It's an acquired taste. You got to get used to it.
That's right. Well, maybe this is we might be at a perfect point as we wind down. What I want to hear is some of your advice. Like, let's envision that football team. Those kids were pretty geared up, at least the ones that we were working with. They were in the middle of a great off season, many of them. And all of a sudden that's taken away and the landscape looks a lot different for them.
Yes.
What are some recommendations? And I'm looking for two different filters for this. Physical and mental. I think we've talked a lot today about a lot of the mental, some of the mental components it'll take to get through this, and adaptability is one of them, resilience, things like that. But give those kids and athletes in general, coaches, just give all of us some advice, physical and mental, for these next few weeks.
Yeah, first I'll talk about the mentality of it. Is we have such a copy and paste world that we live in. Let's be free thinking. Let's think for ourselves during this time. Yes, we have to lean on the people that but don't try to go out and get, I'm going to sit down now and I'm going to read 10 books and I'm going to watch this Netflix, and you can't interact like we're doing now, but sit and think for yourself. Be okay with what you know, be okay with what you have learned, and look to that. Everyone has stories that they can learn from. Everybody has some sort of knowledge of what they can do better. We just don't want to spend time on it. We want to hear from somebody else. This is the time that we need to dig in and be okay. Like Coach Rusty Witt would say, embrace the suck, right? But also let's embrace the small victories, because we talked about it earlier. You can embrace the tough times, but you can also embrace the small victories, meaning It ain't got to be perfect to be a victory, right?
Right.
How many times you heard a coach say that's an ugly win?
Right.
Hey, it's still a win. There's
Right.
still something that we can be okay. That wasn't all for nothing. That's the mentality of it, is be okay with where we are and trust ourselves, man. We don't, I got to get better. I need to ask this person, and I need to read that book. I need to look at this series. No, spend time with yourself and be okay with that and where you are and who you are, and grow on that. Challenge yourself. Physically, we have to look at, and we put some things up on that we had talked about, and we'll continue to do that on the force velocity curve, isometrics. There's a lot of cool things that we can look at.
Sure.
But we talk about adaptation, and we have to be able to adapt and overcome as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we have to be okay with change right now, and be okay with trying something new. Be okay with taking a day off. You need to reframe how we're thinking and reframe how we're programming right now.
Yeah.
It's not going to be ideal. It's not perfect. And this is such a great time to let your body recover. Look at some isometric stuff. Look at some high force production days. You can still do high force production and not have a bar on your back.
Totally right.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's time to go out and experiment with that, because people are thinking, if I'm not redlining, because I've seen all this stuff, if I'm not laying on the ground, if I'm not in a pool of sweat, if I'm not dizzy, I didn't get a great workout in. I'm not getting better. Wow. We need to do a little more research on that. And now this is forcing us to do that.
Right.
So physically, man, be okay and be adaptable with getting out of the weight room and looking at other ways to do it. Because if you can't, then you're not that serious about it. If you can't, then you need the stars lined up.
Right.
And don't be that way. Get rid of that mentality that you can't get better unless you have everything you need all in line for you.
You know what's funny? Yeah, it's exactly right. I remember in college, just to give a little nod to the coaches who are still wrapping their heads around how to adjust physical, programming right now. Sure. I remember kids coming in, I played at an amazing small college. Shout out to Knox College. We would get some kids who came from Chicago area schools, great strength and conditioning backgrounds, come in and do very well. We would also have kids who were literally working on farms, hadn't touched a barbell in their freaking life, and were horses. Just like,
what we call country strong.
Country strong. There you go. Because it's funny. In fact, our guy Alex, Alex and I put out just a quick conversation podcast about this online powerlifting meeting we got coming up.
Yes.
And Alex said a funny thing. He was like, I think people forgot that gravity still exists and there is weight all around us. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's not a rogue barbell and Eleco plates and perfect. But you want to move something heavy, you can go ahead and move something heavy. You want to create force. I love to tell us real quickly to get super specific about some of those deadlift pauses that you were doing. Those looked hard.
Oh, the isometrics? Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
So obviously we're not moving the joint through any range of motion. It's just that, that static tension on there. But one, it helps kind of relieve that tissue of a lot of the stress that it's been under. It makes us get back to some of those great movement patterns, and you can do it at different angles, right above the knee, right below the knee, in that static position. I think I think 1 week we used chains because we tried this out before just to make sure there was some type of adaptation and we were getting something out of it. So we tried chains, we tried bands, we doubled up the bands, we added handles. We just experimented with it,
Sure.
And we did. Coach Dylan Smith and I did that. Now we could have been working with barbells because I still have my home gym looks a little different than most people's home gym.
That's right.
But but we didn't do it. We used what most people would have at the house, and cleaning that tissue up, cleaning the movement patterns up, because you think about a Ferrari that's a great car with low tire pressure. It's losing a lot of energy. Yeah. And so if we can clean up those patterns and restore a lot of those muscle fibers, it will help us in the end. Because if we do high force, if we're going to just go deadlift or squat heavy, our velocity is going to drop, right? We talk a lot about our football players. We're not going to be running very fast. But if we run quality high velocity reps, plyometrics, there's a way to work on the force velocity curve. But if we do some things, broad jumps, short sprints at full speed. Our ground contact time is longer, like in our acceleration phase, because we're creating force. If we can do those things, that will keep our 1 rep max at a high level or improve it a little bit. But not the other way around, right? You cannot lift heavy and slow and run fast. That's what we always look at with our athletes. So we're trying to take that force velocity curve and make it make sense during this 21-day period that we still want to move heavy loads, under tension. So we don't have a barbell. How do we do that?
Yeah.
So we look at the quality of reps. We look at how we can produce force, and we have a high velocity. We have a high force production day, a high velocity day, and then a high work capacity day.
Right.
Yeah.
And and I love it. And I saw those videos that you guys sent over. They're great, and they are hard. If someone wants to access, because here's my recommendation to people. People are for the coach who may not be used to this, and I would say most coaches are not used to this. The coach who's still having difficulty with this. What we're really trying to do is we're not trying to do this forever necessarily. What we're trying to do is get back to the day where we can get back with a barbell. That's fine. I think you and I have talked about this. We're both sort of old school in that way. We love the barbell, but you don't have to be. But that's not the only way. So how do we get from now until then? And we are going to be putting out some programming. There's some other really good people out there. Power Athletes they've got a situation. I don't know if you saw this, but they did a how to build a home gym for $50. But it's like cinder block. You know what I mean? It's not fancy.
I saw that.
And then you guys have this stuff. I actually, just so you know, I did those isometric deadlifts. I did them with a towel. I was like, how bare bones could I get with this? I just wrapped a towel around my head.
Yes.
Right. So you can definitely challenge yourself. Where can people find this stuff? Obviously, you're at Athlete Inc. on social media.
Yep. And we're gonna put some stuff up on our YouTube channel too. Dylan Smith has been working on some stuff, and so that brings me to my point is, you talk about being prepared when this stuff is over physically, but there's not businesses just throwing their hands in the air.
Right.
I'm not throwing my hands in the air like, oh, there's nothing I can do right now. I'm finding ways to get stuff done to be prepared when these doors open up.
That's right.
And it's the same way when those doors open up and those barbell and chalk buckets and iron are sitting there staring you in the face. Hopefully you've done something to prepare for that. And so that's all we're saying. That's all we're saying this is. It's not ideal, but it's going to give you a shot.
Right.
Coming back when
it's ideal for now. And I think that's what I really hope everyone recognizes is it very well could be ideal for this circumstance. It's not what we're used to. It's not necessarily what we want.
That's right.
We can either, like you said, back away from it because of that, or we can lean into it and make it, what else is there but the best we can make it given the circumstances. If you take that sentence, the best we can make it given the circumstances, then ideal will change form and evolve. So
thanks for changing my perspective on that, for sure.
I'm with you.
I know the language is important, so I appreciate that. And if I may, at this point, I just want to. It's funny what the people that I really lean on. You would think, oh well, I've got to look at these top level guys that have 500,000 followers and they have 4 books published. Like I said, if I may, I want to thank you for always pouring into me and my staff and challenging us. You're one of the most talented guys I've been around, good friends, and you take time, all these things that you have going on, you always take time for us. So that means a lot to me. Hopefully, I wish more people could tune into this because they're really missing out on an opportunity to improve themselves. And if you're not improving yourself, you're not going to improve anyone around you. So I appreciate you pouring into me, brother. It means a lot.
Jared, I feel the same way, man. That I'm happy. I love to. I'm grateful for our relationship, working and otherwise, and it's meaningful work. It's a no-brainer for me because it's the reason that we are at the Good Athlete Project, that we're in this line of work. The more we can positively interact with coaches, there's only one way to scale positive impact, and it's work closely with the people who are impacting people.
Sure.
You can change one kid, or you could develop a relationship with a coach who can change the lives of hundreds of kids over his or her lifetime. So I'm certainly happy to do it, man.
Well, I know we could probably talk for a few more hours, but
yeah. Well, let's just listen. By 3 p.m., we'll shut this down. No, I'm just kidding.
Lunch with Coach.
That's right. We went from coffee to lunch. So here's what I would say. If anyone is out there and wants to hear more, like I say, there's only a handful of YouTube or Instagram Live folks. We'll post it on YouTube. I highly recommend people look to your YouTube page because there's some fantastic resources there.
We're going to start building that up,
Yeah, well, I saw a lot of Dylan's demonstrate. Dylan, he's great, man.
Coach Smith has been he's been tremendous.
I
mean, he always goes above and beyond. He always asks, and here's what's for these young coaches. When things happen and things go down and things come up and you know what he asks? Hey, Coach, what do you need from me?
Yeah.
What can I do for you?
That's it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just who he is. And I appreciate him for that. He doesn't get caught up in the ruckus. He is a well-intended guy. He still has a lot to learn, and he knows it, and he embraces it. And you can't find that on a resume, bro. You can't read that in a paragraph.
That's right.
And so anyway, I appreciate him for that, for sure. He's doing a tremendous job, and it helps me out because YouTube and social media, I don't, it's not my forte, but he tells me how important it is, and he keeps me grounded and kind of keeps my focus on why we're doing it.
Yeah.
And he'll do anything I ask. He's not a YouTube expert, but heck, he's trying it.
Yeah.
So we're going to pour into our social media page, our YouTube, and try to get some more good content out there. We haven't done it. Yeah.
So I hope people will look into it. And home base, what's the best sort of home base? Is it the website? Is it?
Yeah, the website athleteinc.life is our website. We're going to start updating that. We're going to start coming out with our video podcast here soon. There's like I said, this time has really let us sit back and say, what can we do different? We've got to be more interactive. We've got to put better content. And when I say better content, we've got to put different content out that people can interact with, that people can learn from. They can ask us questions. They can challenge us, because I'm okay with that. And we've got to start putting that content out there and take risks, right? I guess we're just going to reevaluate some things. And one of those things is get more engaged with our audience.
With your community and community from a distance. And I hope any coach listening hears that, because if we're not ready to be mobile, especially coming out of this, and work from a distance and coach from a distance and motivate from a distance, then we'll be missing a very real opportunity. So
that's true.
I highly recommend anyone listening at home right now or on YouTube later, they check out you and your facility. It really is. It's a top tier, one of a kind facility. I'm so glad that we poked our heads in years back, and we'll keep going with this, man. Reach out if you need anything, and we'll talk soon for sure.
All right, much aloha, Coach. I appreciate you, brother.
Absolutely, Jared.
All right, take care.
Hey, Coach.
What?
I just went off live here. Sorry.
Hey.
So there you go. That's good. So not crazy. We had about 50 viewers. That's all right. Over the whole thing. And